Sinead. Thank you and welcome. I'm just going to put some slides up there just to give us some brief bit of structure as we go through, and I've been warned to stay on time, so I've hit my stopwatch there as we go. Look, we're in a very funny period, and I suppose what we want to do is just take a few minutes to say how might we respond to that situation that we find ourselves in. Just a very quick introduction. I'm talking to you from Dublin here today, but I'm originally from West Cork. Started work in the retail career, in the retail business, in the local super value, went on and did a year's retail management, and basically I spent 20 years with Superquin, 10 years at the operational side of the business, and 10 years on the board of Superquin with Fergal Quinn. And that was a real school of entrepreneurship, and well, that was a food and a retail journey since then, and I left there 14 years ago. I suppose my world has taken me in other directions, but with that strong entrepreneurship foundation that was given in Superquin as part of that. We're lucky in that we have a wide breadth of clients that we work with, many of the agencies, Údarás and Local Enterprise Office and so on, Enterprise Ireland. But we also work with a lot of private clients, some in retail, you can see the names there, the good and the great, some in food service, the like of the Happy Pear and their cafe side of their business. But actually most of our time is spent working with independent business owners. That could be independent retailers, independent cafe owners. It could be a small artisan producer that is growing, or those up the scale further, or it could be someone in accommodation or tourism. So while we may appear as retail and food producer only, in fact it's quite diverse in terms of the people that we meet. And I suppose what we really focus on is the business. So regardless of what you are selling here today, or a service that you are providing, we're more interested in the business aspect of that. Don't want to overdwell, but I think we need to be realistic in terms of the backdrop we're facing. And I suppose live and as of today, you know, what is top of mind to the right of the screen there, sadly we see Debenhams in big difficulty, and the Arcadia group there, second from the right hand side of your screen. Also, and you may not have picked up on some of these, or may have, but Viking Splash Tours in Dublin sadly are gone, and our good friends Vanessa and Tim in the Cooks Academy in Dublin, that wonderful cookery school, have had to say, look, we can't sustain any longer. So I suppose a reality check, and of course there are many businesses that are also in a much better place. I don't think anybody is jumping for joy, but it's not all bad news. But I think we do have to be mindful, and we need to be particularly mindful of the 24 months ahead, because I think that could be a bit of a rocky journey, as we thankfully positive news in sight with regard to vaccines and stuff. My personal view is that's going to be more prolonged than we think it might be. I think we could be talking end of summer next year before we're fully back to where we want to be. That doesn't mean we'll be standing still in the meantime, but let's be mindful of that backdrop. And I suppose the choice really for any business facing today is on the left of the screen here. You know, it could be this, regardless of what you are selling or providing. You might say, look, same product, same service, same customer base, and more or less stay doing what we're doing. For a very small percentage of businesses, you may be lucky, and that may work in the short term, and that may be working currently. However, the evidence on COVID or no COVID has suggested to us that remaining in that place for too long can be dangerous, and is dangerous, because the world moves on and the market moves on. So really, I suppose the two options that we just want to focus on and look at a couple of case studies here is to say it could be the same product or service, but it could be very much a new and re-energized focus on our existing customer base and how can we sell more, and how can we get a new expanded customer base. You'll always do more business, by the way, with your existing customer base if you stimulate them properly, and that has been proven more and more again. But I think with option 2 here, you're looking to sell more to those same people that you deal with, but also are you bringing new people? And that sounds pretty straightforward, but behind it, of course, there are a plethora of questions to say, are we structured for this? Are we top of our game with our social media? Are we good at getting free PR? Are we stimulating the market? If you're online and it's some sort of e-retailing or taking bookings, are we good at database management? Like we know from the people, and this year above all years has been the year of online. But we know that if you're not obsessive about getting customers permission to use their contact details, if you're not good at stimulating that database you have contacts for, that all fits in here very much, even with the same product range. If as part of this regeneration, if you never put a new product or service in, there's probably good traction with the existing group. How good are you sitting here today at stimulating that existing customer base and attracting some new ones? And lastly, I suppose, is the innovation space and saying, you know, do we innovate? Do we have to add something, maybe subtract something that's not working? Do we add something new by way of a product or service, whatever business that you're in, and working with existing and new customer bases to grow that one? So that requires a little bit more energy. I'll show you a couple of examples here that fit into the different examples with the different case studies as part of that. So on we go. So case study number one, and I think I've deliberately picked people in different categories. So this is Eden Beauty, and we can see here that this was an early COVID response, and this poor business owner thought life and business was over when the pandemic struck, because obviously any of you in that sector that might be here today will have realized that was a sector that immediately became impacted because of face-to-face and the way that they do business. And she really thought it was over, all of her years of building that business. And then suddenly said, well, hang on a minute, there must be customers and clients, and beyond her own clients, sitting at home in need of a beauty treatment. And she completely reinvented and created these packs we're now seeing. This was an early mover, and that's why I'm flagging this. We're now seeing dozens and dozens of examples of this. But she put together these kits, and within 12 hours of putting them up on social media, had sold hundreds of packs. And the message, you might not be in the beauty industry at all. The message isn't about beauty. The message is about reinvention, and the message is about reinvigorating the business. When in that lady's case, she thought it was all over, and there would have been every reason for her to say, put up her hands and say, look, I'm just going to sit and, weather this out. She didn't. And there is a clear element at the moment with all of this pushback that the market might be giving, that you just have to fight back. That's a very simple but commercially successful. Now, she also told us that she said it hadn't happened by accident, and she was on social media 24/7 and working hard to get her message out there. But it's a lovely case study. Second one, which you probably know about this one, and again, I've chosen this because they were early mover. So we're used to the idea today in the food sector of the kit, the burger kit or the pizza kit, which has become associated with COVID and lockdowns and stuff like that. So here was Bougeot in Sandymount in Dublin, a single site, kind of gourmet burger place if you're not familiar with it. And of course, they realised very quickly that the burger will travel 5 minutes down the road, is about as far as you'll get it, and it'll be gone soggy on a delivery system. So they had a real problem. We're closed, we can't do much, bit of click and collect, of course they were doing, but the delivery piece was a problem. So they devised the kit, and they said, let the customer cook it themselves, and now they could deliver within 10 kilometres around, we'll say. And the staff went out and the chefs went out and everybody went out and did the deliveries. But there was still a restriction on how far they could cover because they were doing it themselves. And then it evolved further, and now we're into mid and late summer, and that was working quite well. And they said, I wonder, is there a way that we could take this national? And of course, they spoke to their courier, and DPD ended up as their partners. And you can now have Bougeot in whatever part of the country you're coming today to us from. You can have, I think it's a next day delivery or 3 times a week delivery service. There was a business who thought 12 months ago that their remit was Sandymount and the customers in that area, who now have a national business. And I've chosen that one to say, not alone reinvigorate your business once, because they got it from there to doing the kit. That was number one. But number two, they've taken that as a national business, which they tell us is a multiple of the single site that they have. Again, most people here are not going to be in the burger business. That's not the message. The message is to say, are you really digging deep and saying, what is it that we need to do? Now, that's a pretty radical reinvention, but nonetheless, they were one of the first movers in the kit area, and they haven't stopped there, actually, because they're now national. But you'll see here, and if you go onto their site, you'll see several different, they're collaborating with others to do themed kits now. So that's Pat O'Neill's Dry Cure Bacon, and that's a little cafe in Dublin that are putting out this hot stuff sauce. So they're continuing. They've collaborated with Guinness for rugby events and stuff like that, continuing to evolve and to that energy. This is Miriam Sweet Creations in Wicklow. Miriam is in the sugarcraft cake decoration business, and of course found herself, she had an online shop, but found herself with not a lot happening, felt she should be doing something, a class on Zoom, and ended up on a Sunday evening, having promoted it well, with 600 people at her class. Nearly had a meltdown, but did the class and did it successfully. And if you look at the bottom of the screen here, she recorded it and posted that out afterwards. 33,000 people the following week watched it. And then she started scratching her head and said, but I haven't commercialized this. The sales on my website haven't gone up dramatically. So she did it again next week, and she had another 500 or 600 people. But the next week she said to people, look, what I'm going to do now, we're going to have a private class on Tuesday, and that's €25 each, and that'll be a private class, and this is what we're covering. And she kept mentioning her website. So two things happened. When she closed the call, she had 30 people had given her €25 each to do a class with her the following week, and her website sales had shot up. So if you're talking about creating awareness, and my question to you is to say, you mightn't be online at all, but are you creating the level of awareness? I think this is a lovely story. She didn't necessarily know what she was doing. She used intuition to take her to each of the next levels. So if Jenny is here, I'll let Jenny cover this slide before I give you final thoughts. I'm not sure that Jenny is with us, or I can talk through the business there. So Jenny, if you're here, you can shout. I'll stop for a second.
Hi, James. Thank you. Yeah, I'm here. Thanks for putting the slide up. Hello, I'm Jenny O'Halloran. I'm from Longnamara, Aran Island Seaweed, based out on Inishmore. We are a family seaweed harvesting business. We've been operating here for 20 years. My father before me, my husband and I came back from New Zealand and joined the business about 5 years ago. I suppose the area that I was just going to talk about today was actually in line with work we've done actually with James and Údarás na Gaeltachta. James came on as a mentor for us within our business through Údarás na Gaeltachta during that time of COVID and the initial lockdown. Our business experienced 75% of our pipeline and our secured purchase orders for the year just disappear overnight. I know that's not an unfamiliar territory to probably many of you as well. And I suppose the experience that we had, and I think the way I could probably explain it is break it into three areas. What we looked at with James was what we could do now, what we could do in the short term, and what we could do in the long term. So when we looked at what we could do now, it was about reserving what we had. So you look at your cash flow, we were looking at, stock that we had on hand, active business that was still operating. So the food service industry was gone. Part of our cosmetic supplier, the customers that we supply to was gone overnight. So the one area that we had capability to actually move in the short term was around our food ingredient, which was our wholesale side of the business. So that was really looking at, okay, all right, let's reserve our cash flow. Let's see how we're operating. We did some very good work with James around looking at, well, you know, how long can we sustain our business without new cash flow coming in, or and trying to calculate, you know, what percentage of sales do we need in order to be able to keep our doors open. So that was very immediate, reactive activities that we did with James. We then looked at the short-term opportunity, I suppose, to say, okay, well then what can we do to generate revenue within the next 6 months, let's say, or 12 months, branching out to 12 months. And one thing that James said to us, which I think really would ring through with many of you, and I suppose we saw it even during the Celtic Tiger recession, was blue chip clients, working with our customers that we know are good at paying their invoices. We had good rapport with, long standing in a lot of cases as well. So, you know, what could we offer them? What were they looking for? Checking in with them, you know, touching base, just one, to make sure that the security of those orders was still maybe there, and also then looking at to see was there anything else we can offer them. So that was then giving us a bit of a steer around, okay, well, here is our revenue generation for the next 6 months. Here's what we can do within a lockdown. Here's what we can do within a COVID. Here's what we can do within a global pandemic situation. And then we had to look at the long term, and where our long term was very focused on tourism. And obviously, I think that affects a lot of businesses in the west of Ireland, even though we're primarily food, because we're in a tourist location. You'd be kind of mad not to try and look at that as an opportunity. So the long-term tourism side of it became limited, but what we had was to look at the opportunity for developing a product and using the time that we had to see what that might look like. So I think everybody sort of went to ground during the lockdown, went, what's my Eureka product? What's my Eureka product? You know, you looked online and you saw people coming up with these amazing things. And I thought, oh, you know, James, what's our Eureka product? And, you know, the message back was, you know, you may not have a Eureka product, and what you might need to do is actually put that time and that effort and that resource into looking at something that's long-term, that's robust, and where there's an opportunity to diversify and grow your business. So that's what we did do. And we worked with James around producing a new product line, where we, you know, in our case, it was seaweed, and it's okay, you know, people like the idea of eating seaweed. They know it's good for them, but they're not really sure how to eat it. So we have our ambient product retail range, which, you know, there's a percentage of people who know what to do with that, but there's a lot of people who like the idea of eating it, but just really don't know how to cook with it. So let's introduce a product that is ready to eat, that has seaweed in it. So we are just in the process of doing a soft launch of a new product range where we're introducing seaweed into a fresh, ready to eat product. And again, that's been a huge learning curve for us. And James has given us a great steer through that, particularly around the homework and the basis, the foundation of it, so that it isn't just a knee-jerk reaction product that we're putting out to the market. This is something that we actually lay a very solid foundation for, that has a robust sales strategy that we can implement over the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months.
And that's the key, Mas. Thank Jenny so much for that. I'm just going to, I want to leave some room for questions. So I suppose just as a wrap up there, and that's been your 4th live case study, which is great to hear, of that new range and ready to go for 2021. I suppose, look, you can boil all that back to one question, which is, are you top of your game? In other words, you know, we've all been beaten down and battered around the place over the next 12 months. Is it time? Because the business will succeed and rise and fall depending on where you are at yourself. And this is very much a personal thing. It's about, yes, regenerating the business and re-energizing, but actually it's about yourself and looking at your own role as well and saying, am I digging deep enough? Am I structured enough? Am I a good time manager? Am I mastering my social media? I'm going to stop there because I'm sure there may be a question or two to come come in, and I'm just conscious of staying within the slot. It's been brief, but hopefully it's given you some glimpse at saying, look, there are a lot of businesses out there reinventing, regenerating and re-energizing. Thank you.
James, thanks a million for that. I suppose if you were giving, and I know there's a huge amount to intake there, and kind of it is looking at existing and then potential new clients and then the new products. I suppose, I know you're very food based, and this all goes, it doesn't matter, it goes across all industries. In respect to maybe the tourism, where you have your wet pubs or you have your gastro pubs, etc. I suppose, how do you, is there anything, what would you first say to somebody, maybe even with a wet pub, and says, you know, the government is saying, no, you're super spreaders, whether there's evidence or not or whatever. How do you think they can innovate, or is there opportunities there, bar a large investment in food, which seems to be an option? Or what would you do? I suppose maybe the more important question is to engage with your customers while you're closed, because you want to make sure they come back, or you want to make sure you're trying to get the balance that, you know, if you open your doors, you're going to have customers.
Yes, and a great question, Sinead. I think there are a number of categories at the moment where if you were doing cartwheels around the place, like if you have tourists coming in or something and they're not coming, well, then you have a dilemma, and all you can do there is possibly look towards the next, when you can reopen, and what's your plan. However, there's probably one of two directions you might head. You might take a very valid view to say, look, it's going to have to be a case of batten down and weather this out, because we simply cannot trade, and regardless of what we can do. However, I have seen several businesses, and they will openly say to you, look, what I'm doing at the moment isn't entirely profitable, it's break even, but it allows me to keep talking to my customer. So it could be that pub which isn't open but is doing takeout meals, and they may just be doing enough to break even, but it's a way for them to dialogue and communicate. I was talking to Jean in Willow in Ennis, ladies fashion shop, beautiful online shop as well, and she used very interesting language, and she has been running a lot of little evening time live stream interviews with fashion people and stuff like that, and she talks about doing it to keep engaged with her customer. But she says, look, we are no longer retailers, we're in the media business. And what she meant by that is it's all about communication, and you have to immerse into the social platforms, and you have to immerse into the trying to generate a bit of free PR, because I suppose if that gap is gone with talking to the customer, there is always a danger that the pattern changes, you know, invariably. I'm absolutely sympathetic to businesses that are sitting here today that are in those categories that are just saying, look, I can't trade as part of the restrictions, so no matter what I apply. So you may be in that category where you're saying, look, I simply can't do anything, but at least I'm going to send out a newsletter once a quarter, and at least I'm going to put the time into prepping. I did a call with somebody this morning in a business, I'll stop after this, but he was saying he has used the time to build a new business model for the future. He knows that he's stuck right now, he has enough funding there to weather it through, and he's building a very new model, and very radical in his category.
Very good. Yeah, it is about thinking, I hate the phrase outside the box, but it is about your customer engagement, seeing what do they want from you, and can you give them something, an experience that they wouldn't be expecting, and is new to them. I suppose I'm conscious, and Marnie, who has reminded me here, is that all our speakers today are on our mentoring panel. So if somebody feels that they would like to have a private conversation, I'm sure you're available to see if there's something you can work together, and mentoring, and etc. on that.
Absolutely.
So we really appreciate James agus Tigam Okadela Agad. So I appreciate you making yourself available and sharing your experience and your time with us, and we'll meet again. Okay, Magad, Stangafoil.